and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we are going to take a quick look at the new Dior Fall Collection for 2022. This is part one. So on the Dior website, this palette 889 Reflexion is currently available. This is 7 grams. It has a 6-month shelf life like all other Dior palettes. It's made in France. The reason I wanted to mention the actual weight, this is 7 grams. We do have the holiday, or not holiday, fall embossing here, which has like this mirror effect of the Dior words. Typically these limited edition palettes that have the special embossing are around 4 grams for the palette, and they usually retail around $65 US, but right now the Dior website has this listed for $44 US. Pretty sure it's a glitch, but great opportunity if you're interested in this quad. They are also available right now at Selfridges. They're going to be a little bit more than the Dior US website right now. Now, this collection also includes another eyeshadow palette called Mirror Mirror, and that, again, the names Mirror Mirror and Reflexion are kind of, they go along with this image of the embossing where you have Dior and then the mirror effect of Dior. So that other palette is not currently on the Dior website yet. It will be coming soon, but it is available at Selfridges. They also have 3 new limited Rouge Dior lipsticks, and I chose not to pick those up because I feel like these new Dior Rouge Dior Forever lipsticks are just like perfect for this collection, and I'm really enjoying this. These are transfer proof matte lipsticks. I have one on right now. I do have a full video on these, so I'll leave that linked below. But I personally would pick a couple shades from this line over the limited edition ones in this collection. They've also included I believe it's the Charnel blush from Dior, which is a re-promote as part of this collection. I don't have that with me. And then we also have, again, nail polishes and so forth, but we have this new mascara. So this is the Dior Iconic Over Curl Mascara. I'm not the biggest fan of Dior mascaras, but I had to try this because it's a limited edition color. I love color mascaras. So this is 664 Brique, and it is a Brique red mascara. Let's start off with some swatches. The mascara, you can see, does have this curved wand. You can see it has kind of this brick red appearance here. Go ahead and put that on my hand for you to see. And you can see that it definitely does have a brick red look to it. And I do have a close-up during the eye demos where you can really see the color of this mascara on the lashes and what kind of effect it has. So if you're looking at this shade, you can see it is a brick red with brown mixed in. It's almost like that red clay brown. So if you're looking at like red clay dirt, if it's saturated with water, this is the color of the mascara. Now, this eyeshadow quad 889 Reflexion, I have to say, I wasn't originally interested in this, but I could not pass up the price of $44. And I'm actually really happy that I ended up picking it up. So these are the top 2 shades. Let's take a look at this. So you can see this first shade is going to be kind of a beige. Oh, and one other thing to mention, between this palette and the Mirror Mirror, the Mirror Mirror is considered a pearlescent palette, and this one is considered a satin palette. All of these, this is the middle shade, have varying forms of a satin finish. So some are going to be more satin than others, but they all have a bit of a satin finish. You can see this one here is kind of like a beigey champagne with a little bit, it's a little warm, okay? And then we have kind of this bronze here. It's kind of like a coppery bronze. There's a little bit of orange in there. And then this red is this is a middle red. It's almost like a brick red with just a little bit more vibrancy to it. And again, they all have varying degrees of a satin finish. You can see that these top 2 are going to be a little bit stronger than the middle layer, which is a little bit more of a satin matte. Then we have this rosewood shade and this brown shade here. And the brown is going to be the most matte from here, but here's the rosewood. You can see it's going to be warm. It's almost like a nude rosewood. There's like a touch of warmth to it, a touch of brown. And then this is the brown, and you can see it's matte, but it's not a flat matte, so it's a little bit of a satin matte. Now, looking at these shades, I have to say they really make me think of fall leaves in a forest. You've got like the tree bark, and then you kind of have those golds and oranges and reds, you know, as the leaves are changing. And the Mirror Mirror palette really makes me think of that as well, because you kind of have this olive green and more like coppery oranges and so forth. So that's what they remind me of. The inspiration for the collection has not actually been identified as such, but that is what I think of when I see these. So let's take a look at the demos, and I will talk a little bit about these. All 5 of these shadows perform very well on the eyes. I have not had any issue with creasing or performance or actual application. I have not experienced any fallout from any of these shades. One thing to note is the deep brown shade. It has a little bit more of a putty-like texture compared to the others. There's a little bit more of that like gel creaminess to it. And so you can actually see when I'm putting it on that it kind of adheres to the eye a little bit more strongly when you put it on. So I feel like that one is a good one to kind of tap in place versus a sweeping motion, because it will kind of adhere where you first put it. And, you know, as we get into the ones with the stronger satin finish, those have a little bit more of that powdery texture. They're easier to glide on, whereas anything that's slightly more matte feels a little bit more, just has a little bit more of that putty-like texture again. So the strongest one like that would be the deep brown. And then I would say the rosewood shade next to that is, and the red in the middle. Those two both are kind of like intermediate. And then both the coppery shade, the copper bronze, and that beige champagne, the first 2 shades, those are going to be more powdery on the scale. None of them, again, are going to be powdery to the point of having fallout, at least on me. And I feel like, you know, they feel like your traditional Dior shadows with this newer formula that's been out. Has it been 1 year or 2 years now? I can't even remember. But anyway, these all perform very, very well. I'm very happy with how they perform. And I was really pleasantly surprised by this color story, because I don't like red eyeshadow. But I feel like these reds and these like oranges and so forth in here all have a touch of brown in there, which make them a bit more wearable. They're not going to be that super bright red. More of that like brick tone is in there that really helps make it a little bit more wearable, in my opinion. And you can see in the demos that I played a bit with the red, I played a bit with the coppery bronze, so you can kind of see what those look like if you want to go for something more out there. And then today's look, I wanted to see how subdued and how light of an eye look I could get. Something that I would wear more on an everyday basis, or, you know, daytime versus nighttime. So today's look then, I focus more on the satiny beige and the cocoa brown with a little bit of the rosewood, and I feel like that's a really great everyday look. So this palette's very versatile in that sense. And, you know, if the color story works for you, then this is actually a really great palette to have. Now, as for the mascara, I love color mascaras. I have to say though that I don't love this Dior formula. I find it to be a little bit clumpy. And I feel like it's just okay. The actual formula itself is just okay. It's not something that I would purchase again, because again, I'm not a fan of this particular formula. For me, I go for something that is going to give me a little bit more separation of my lashes, and this seems to be a little bit clumpier. It's a little bit of a drier formula, but I do like the color. I love color mascaras. I think this color goes really well with the collection. And this is also one where if you want to just, you know, use a black mascara of your choice and then just add a little bit of the red to the tips, that would be something really cool. You can also use kind of like a white primer mascara to kind of be able to see a little bit more of the color if you are interested in that. Unfortunately, I don't have one at the moment, so I couldn't show you that, but it will make the color just slightly more vibrant if you put on a white mascara first. So let's move on to some comparisons. Now, Chanel does have a mascara, color mascara coming out as well. I'm very curious to see how the colors match up, but they do look like they might be similar. And I also have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk mascara, and this is in the shade Dream Pop. As you can see, I haven't opened that yet, but let's just swatch this to see how this compares. So this, again, is limited edition as well. This, however, has kind of that like rubbery one. It's hard to get the actual product off, but you can see that the colors are going to be fairly similar. The Dior is going to be a little bit more red, and the Charlotte Tilbury is a little bit more brown, which I have to say, this is probably, I love brown mascara for everyday wear, so I think this would be a really great everyday wear color, and the Dior is going to give you a little bit more pop. Now, as for eyeshadow comparisons, Dior has already come out with a few other palettes that have kind of this red color story. Whether they are similar or not, I honestly cannot say. I do feel like they're reminiscent of each other. However, I don't have those. So I am going to compare the ones that I do have. This is Early Bird 659. This was limited edition from last fall. So this is the red shade in here, and you can see that this is really going to be more pink, and it is going to be satin, but it's a much softer red. So this shade from Early Bird is a stronger satin. Again, the one here is a little bit more matte in the Reflexion palette. And then I also want to take a look at 022 Cruise Look at this middle shade. This is kind of a coppery, bronzy shade as well. So we're going to put this, let's just put it right here so you can kind of see how that compares. And I would say that these are pretty similar. The one in Cruise Look actually has a little bit more orange in it, but they're I think they are close enough. Next, let's take a look at some of the Chanel red quads. They've had quite a lot of red quads recently. This is 364 Candor et Séduction. And we're going to just take a look at these bottom two shades. The first two really don't match anything in there. So let's put these down here at the bottom. And you can see here that this is going to have more of a burgundy vibe to it, and this is going to have more of a pink vibe. So neither of them really go with those. They're a good complement to the Dior palette, but they're not a match or a dupe. This palette is 362 Candor et Provocation, and this is going to be a lot cooler. So you know, we're gonna take a look at these bottom two shades, but these are going to be more like purpley reds, and you can see that this brown is going to be a lot softer, and yeah, overall they really don't match. This is the last Chanel quad I have for comparison. This is 354 Warm Memories. These are all going to be lighter, more muted, but I did want to just kind of compare this color story, because the color story itself, the shades that are included in this, are reminiscent, even though these are going to be softer, more muted colors. But again, excuse that, that's just a little sore there. But you can see here that we do have kind of this a similar idea. It's just this is going to be actually a little bit peachier and rosier, whereas this stays more on the rusty vibe. And I do want to take a look at a few of the Dior singles. These are their mono shadows. This one here is number 884 Rouge Trafalgar. This is in the velvet formulas. These are going to be different finishes, but I wanted to show you how the colors compare. So up here we're looking at the Dior palette. Let's try to squeeze that in right there. You can see this is going to be more burgundy. There's also another matte shade here. This is 763 Rosewood. And let's see how this compares to the Rosewood shade here. Let's put it right there. And you can see this is actually going to be a little bit more brown than the one in the palette, but they do have a similar vibe. This is Poncho 481. This is going to be a satin finish. This is kind of the closest I have to the brown in here, but you can see that Poncho is going to be cooler. There's a little bit more of that grayish tone to it compared to the brown in the palette, which is a little bit warmer. And last up, this is 570 Copper. This is in the velvet formula, but I wanted to compare this one here. We're going to put this right up here at the top, kind of with this coppery bronze shade, but you can see that this copper shade is going to have a little bit more of a muddy texture to it, whereas there's a little bit more of this, I mean, obviously it's a satin finish versus a matte, but you can see a little bit more vibrancy, a little bit more, it's not even necessarily orange, but that brighter orange to it, more like shiny copper versus one that's starting to dull. So these are all of my comparisons for this palette. Is this a palette you need to have? You know, that's really going to depend on your interest in this color story, but I would have to say that all of the shadows perform beautifully. The quality is definitely there on this one, which is not always the case with these limited edition palettes. I'm happy to say that this one performed very well. I have high hopes for Mirror Mirror. As for the mascara, I like the color. I don't love the formula, but you know, sometimes it's worth it because the color mascaras don't come around very often. So that's going to be a personal decision whether you like this formula or not. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope these were helpful. And I will have a part 2 video when I receive my Mirror Mirror palette, which I have not yet been able to order. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you very soon. Have a great day.